What is up, people, and welcome back to the channel. Right, so I hope you like the new footage. That new camera I brought, the GoPro 5, through wireremotes.com. Really good camera. Bit of an issue with the GPS wasn't working properly, but I think it might, because I've been in touch with it might be just where we were and there not being a very good GPS signal. So I ended up taking it off. But I hope you like the footage. That was my first time ever there. So I geared the car completely wrong. Remember I said I put the smaller sprocket on? I should have left the bigger one on or even gone bigger. I didn't expect that circuit to be so quick. So basically I'm sat there flat out in sixth, rocking the limiter because I need more top end. I think a bit more top end, a bit more power. When we did a 115, now I think there's some more left in the car because there was a lot of driver error, I'm not going to lie. But apparently that was really good. I had people coming up to me who've raced there for years and gone, mate, you're flying. And I was like, well, it was moving pretty quick. But yeah, quality went well, really enjoyed it. But as you've seen, race 2 didn't go so well. Well, race 1 even, 4 laps in. Never had that kind of issue with this car. Basically, we've got an electrical gremlin. As you've seen, it was fine. And then that last corner, which is, I can't remember the name of the corner. Well, it's the first or second corner, whatever corner it was. Going in, shifted down, and I thought it misshifted, which this car hasn't done in a long time, so I thought I'd fixed it. But I think if you watch the rev counter, it literally, the rev counter, as I've clutched it, the rev counter dropped to 0. Where when I downshift, it blips. So I've clutched it, gone for the downshift, the same time the ignition has dropped to 0. So when I've released the clutch, the engine, as I'm downshifting, the engine should have blipped, but it didn't. It went the other way and cut. So when I've released, as I'm pushing down, the gearbox has basically stopped, which is why it's gone dong, 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 dong. So I've had to yank it, missed it, yanked it again. It's gone into gear. I've gone around the corner, and if you listen, it blips. It goes pop and then goes burr and just cuts. And I'm like, what the shit? I did not expect this car to have an electrical issue because I've never had an electrical issue. I'm just going to put you on my tripod. Hang on a sec. So, yeah, it blipped. And it blipped, died. Now, that's very strange for this car. Normally, I break something. Physically, it's broken. So, what we've done is we've done a few checks, but we've got no spark, no injectors. There is no 5 volts going to the crank sensor. There's no 5 volts going to the cam sensor, and the high pressure fuel pump isn't coming on. So all of those things have stopped working. Now from this, hang on, I've got to just remembered I've got my mate's transponder on. Thanks, Les. I lend my mate's transponder because it's cheaper than buying one, and we race on different occasions. So, right, anyway, yes, so I thought it was a crank sensor because that day a lot of people were suffering with electronical issues. We had crank sensors going down, throttle position sensors were knackering up, air mass meters were playing up. There were so many electrical issues that day, unbelievable. I know now why they call it Castle Doom. A lot of them were having problems with the heat and how bumpy it is. On the videos, you can't really tell just how bumpy it is, apart from my clutch foot bouncing around all over the place. It is an aggressive track. And my ECU is right by my exhaust tunnel, bolted to the floor. So, I think the ECU has failed. Which is a bit of a shitter. So I think, from my small amount of knowledge, this crank sensor is 233 ohms. The Gen 2 engine up the corner has 240 ohms. So that small amount of variance tells me the crank sensor is okay. I can't test it for AC. You should have 3 volts AC coming out of it when cranking, but I can't do that because I'm on my own. So that's a bit of a tricky one. But what I am tempted to do is, does anybody remember that turbo engine I used to have? Well, I kept all of the loom. Now everything on this loom is identical apart from the TPS, which is a different plug. But I'm told it will run on idle without this TPS plugged in. Now I know this is mapped for a turbo, but a turbo on idle is the same as an NA engine. Pretty much. You're not creating boost. So if we drape this loom over that engine and plug all of this in, power it up and hit the go button, technically it should start because it's the same engine, Gen 1 booster. Exactly the same. That is what I'm tempted to do. Then that will tell us 100% if it doesn't fire on this loom, more than likely it's a sensor issue. But the way it's not priming the fuel pump. So what we have lost is high pressure fuel pump. It's not prime. When you flick the ignition on, it should be priming, but it's not. Sorry about this. Now that is controlled by the ECU. You flick the ignition on, it primes, shuts off. That's not happening. But you bypass the relay and the fuel pump works. Now if you look, when it broke down, it was cranking and we had an RPM signal, but it wasn't firing. We got it back to the pits. I hit the start button, it fired and died. Since then, we've lost the tacho as well. We're losing more and more stuff. So I'm thinking the ECU shut itself. Now I bought it second hand out of a grass track car 6-7 years ago, and it was old then. So I think we need to unplug all of this, plug all of that in, power it up, hit the go button and see what happens. Does anybody disagree? I can't hear anyone. So that's what we're going to do. And I checked my injectors with this thing, by the way. This is like a little diode thing. You plug it in, crank, and it blinks. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, gonna get to work. So what I'm gonna quickly do is put you like this, unplug, drape it over, plug it all back in, as if by magic. So the only thing that's not plugged in is the gear position sensor, because it's inside the car. The boost solenoid, the flat shifter, the fuel pressure sensor. I'm not sure if the fuel pressure sensor doesn't see a certain pressure, whether anything will come into power. I didn't count on the fuel pressure sensor. It might be wired, there might be a minimum maximum in the map. But we're just going to have to hope, people. Right. I think it's right. Turn it on first. Says I'm in gear 8. That's probably because it's not plugged in. No oil pressure because the oil pressure is not plugged in. We'll get on the off button, shall we? The fuel pump's priming, but without the throttle position sensor or the fuel pressure, will it run? Bollocks, I didn't think about the fuel pressure, did I? And the batteries are touch low. I wonder if I can flick through these maps to these pages, see if we can get a crank signal. I wonder if I've got a more of a precise one. Engine mode, RPM warnings. Jimmy, they had the RPM warning was 11,257. It had all the revs. Battery voltage is only 10.2. Fuel pressure. See, fuel pressure is set on here. So I wonder if I can turn it off. Fuel. No. This isn't going to affect the map, is it? TPS is set at 15. RPMs, there we go, top one. Yeah. We're registering RPMs. The RPMs then was 190. So if we're measuring RPMs, then we might have, because the crank sensor works off the RPM, doesn't it? So let me think. If we've got RPMs, that means the crank sensor's working. Yeah? The TPS is set at 15, which technically should let it run. These injectors are a lot smaller. Battery voltage is flashing up. Yeah. Dropping to 8 volts. We need to get the charger on it. Ah! So, right then people, everything's connected apart from the TPS. Now, I know they are on here because I've got 5 volts coming down. So I've got an earth, 5 volt and signal. But the one coming out the 992 in the car, I've got no volts coming down there. So I've got no volts coming through there, no volts going to the sparkers or the injectors, no volts going anywhere through the old ECU. So I can't work out what the pinout is on this, because the colours are different on here. All I can find is the earth. But because I've got no 5 volts coming down one of these, I don't know which is 5 volts and which is signal. You try finding the pinout for 992 MBE ECU. They're just not freaking available. But this, for some reason, the injectors aren't firing. I now have spark, and you can see on the dash. So if we flick through, there's your RPM, but if we flick through to this map, see that there? Watch. RPM. Right, so we are getting RPM, but we are not getting TPS, because TPS is saying flat knacker look. I think it's because the TPS isn't plugged in. It's telling the injectors, we'll have off, thank you very much. So I am in a bit of a pickle, because I don't want to join these wires up and get it wrong and damage the new one. But we've got spark, we've got fuel, we've got RPM, which is denoting the engine is giving us what we need to know. I wonder if it's got CAM on here. Oil, battery, water, TPS, whatever that is, whatever ARC-C is, I don't know what that is. 2 volts fuel bar, that's not plugged in. CAM, so we've got RPM, TPS, gear, oil pressure, oil D3C, battery, BIOS. Can anybody see boost lamp? Oh, you can put your lamp sensor into this. Trip 2, I don't know what that means. ODA, oh, that's because it's got a GPS system, so you can pick up your speeds and whatnot. Bollocks. Shift lights, gear detection, pages, alarms, lap timing, LGT bit. What the shit is? What's this? What's all this? Honestly, I can see it's got 12 volts, 5 volts, 4.97 volts. This is 12.39 volts. LGT. I don't know what an LGT is, or an AN1. Because I'm guessing, or inputs. You can go into this somehow, because it's got this little data loggy thing down there. See it flashing away? I'm guessing it's because of the TPS. He's telling no. This thing also controls all your cooling as well. So this is your warm-up, look. Warm-up. And then it goes to this one, which is warmed up. Right, so I'm going to have a chat with my friend because I don't know what the fucking hell this means. Where the fuck did that just come from? Can you believe my new oil cooler has failed? Can you believe it? Brand new? Ah.